The full title of this presentation is The Cancionero, an attempt for equality. We Need a Spanish Language hymnal has long been a common comment among Spanish-speaking Episcopalians. On October 27th, 2006, that topic arose in a conversation between Anthony Guillen, the National Latino Hispanic Officer, and myself. About 2 weeks later, we had created a database of approximately 1,700 unique songs. Included were songs from the United States and 8 different Latino countries. Each song was carefully noted wherever it occurred. The multiple entries identified the most popular songs. The database included the first line, the author, the composer, the tune name, the book and tune number, and copyright information. The preparation of a project design and standards was the next step. The draft proposed a book with 500 to 700 musical selections, which would, quote, represent the style and content of traditional Anglican theology. The contents would be proportionally balanced among the seasons of the church year, end quote. It provided that 20% might be translations of traditional North Atlantic hymnody, 45% traditional and popular Latino Hispanic hymnody, and 35% recent and new Latino and Hispanic pieces, and that they should be in harmony with the lectionary. Other provisions touched on the nature of the translations, harmony between the mood of the texts and the music, and a preference for contemporary language. Fortuitously, shortly thereafter, there was a conference about music for Latino congregations. All participants reviewed the draft. There were many approving comments and only a few suggestions for minor changes. The initial project team met on March 12th and 13th, 2007 to organize that project. The final version of the design and standards document was approved. 3 subcommittees were organized, one to review the theology of the texts, the second to address the quality of Spanish, and the third to determine the musicality of each song. Almost immediately, the members of the subcommittees realized the enormity of their tasks and the time pressures involved. So, the subcommittees proved ineffective. Then Sandra Montes visited the Latin American diocese and identified more than 700 unique songs being used in Anglican worship. A calendar was established, leading to printing the Cancionero in autumn 2008. It was also agreed that the project should produce a words-only edition for popular use and a separate edition for musicians. Lynette Parkhurst, a Lutheran church musician, was recruited for the project. She accepted the responsibility for maintaining the database. Since the database included many translations of Euro-American hymns, there were multiple translations of the same hymn. Since records were based upon the Spanish of the first lines, it was important to have a skilled musician who could identify the tunes, compare the contents of the texts, and co-locate those different versions of the same song. Over time, the database eventually grew until it had over 2,400 unique songs. Another practical matter was creating a standard basis for evaluations. A form for theological evaluations and another for music was created. The evaluative work began with those songs which repeated in more than a single source. A much larger group of evaluators was clearly needed, so the database would have to be augmented so as to track the evaluations and the names of the evaluators. There was a growing realization of the enormous scope of the project. The church publishing company was reticent to plunge into this project because they had a bad history with an earlier traditional Spanish language hymnal, which did not sell well. Guillen also initiated conversations with the Roman Catholic group World Library Publications. To speed the evaluation process, the first of several group gatherings was held in late August 2007. At that gathering, teams were formed, and in 2 12-hour days, they engaged in the evaluation process. In November, the executive committee met in Chicago at the headquarters of World Library Publications. Guillen announced that the Church Publishing Corporation was interested in a possible joint venture with WLP. And it was common agreement that it would be important for the publication to be inexpensive. The WLP personnel estimated that it would probably take at least 2 years to produce the Cancionero. Later, WLP indicated that they had the funds for preparation, publication, and distribution of the Cancionero, but said that it would be ineffective without recordings of the music. It was estimated that the recording process would cost about $250,000, and the church publishing company would need to provide the bulk of that money, and the executive committee would have to seek grants for the rest. During a discussion of the future work of the project, the committee accepted Guillen's suggestion to eliminate some of the well-known songs from the evaluation process and merely accept them into the Cancionero. In an expansion of the project, it was decided to invite songs which were not included in the database. Those would include popular songs which had not already been encountered and newly composed songs. Eventually, there were 120 new submissions. The volume of work and the financial limitations required a modification of the original goal for evaluations. So first, one member of the executive committee prepared a list of must-have songs for which additional evaluations would not be needed. Second, most musical evaluations were to be completed by pairs of musicians. Third, if there was a seriously negative theological evaluation, the song was eliminated. Eventually, there were 1,500 file folders for the evaluated songs. About that time, the database included 2,758 unique songs, and Guillen announced, "We have reached the high water mark with the database." The volunteers evaluating the text and the music were serious about the process. Their comments suggested the season or category for the songs, word changes, and/or minor changes in the musical notation, going so far as to draw staff lines and the suggested notation. At one several-day group session, 62 songs were given final approval, and analysis disclosed that 27% were European origin, 63% were Hispanic originally written songs, about 5% were African or African American origins. In 2009, it was obvious that the work of the executive committee was so extensive and the range of talents needed so great that it had to be expanded. Four others were added. Guillen said, "Our executive committee consists of 10 diverse persons. The members have 6 different countries of origin. They currently live in 6 different states, from Florida to California and Illinois to Texas. 6 of the members have a history of regularly performing music, at some at the level of national symphonic work. 3 of our members have formal degrees in music. In an effort to have the widest possible range of suggestions, in May 2009, the first lines of every song was made available electronically for public voting. The committee was gratified to discover that most of the songs which received multiple voice had already been approved. Throughout 2010, the project was focused on 3 aspects. 1, finishing the approval process. 2, confirming the textual details. And 3, typing all of the texts. Typing the text was not a simple process. Partners noted that for each song, it was necessary to compare the wording in the various books, consult the written evaluations, email committee members for clarifications, determine the proper key of the song, determine chords, and enter 2 different chording sessions in different typefaces above the texts. There have been early comments about the need for various indices to the text. By October 2010, 2 members of the committee had taken the initiative to start 2 different indices, an index of bilingual songs and an index of biblical references. Meanwhile, the need for independent proofreading was obvious. By June, over 600 songs, which had been fully typed, were also proofread. After recording 10 varied songs with a group of volunteer singers and instrumentalists as a demonstration, a recording studio owner estimated that 600 songs could be recorded for a total cost of $102,000. Some sample recording efforts began in February 2011. Because nothing had been arranged regarding copyrights, the first recordings were those approved songs in the public domain. Admittedly, an incomplete list of 145 songs was prepared, including 58 originally in Spanish. Less than 40 were recorded. On March 28, 2012, the committee decided to discontinue the recording project. It was noted that at the General Convention in Indianapolis, attendance would likely include a number of Latino musicians, which would provide a natural pool of performers. The basement of the cathedral included a sound recording studio, and there was a professional sound engineer associated with the cathedral. So, during the July 2nd to July 12th period, several musician singers were recording, and 240 songs were recorded. So slightly over 1/3 of the approved songs were recorded in a 10-day period at a cost of $12,700, substantially less than the earlier estimates. Then there were 2 major changes. On November 15th, 2012, WLP informed EN that they had decided not to publish the Cancionero because their priorities had changed. At the same time, Forward Movement Publications agreed to cooperate with the Church Publishing Group in publishing the Cancionero. Forward Movement said they could search the rights and the sales of the book would be used to recoup their initial investment. Somewhat final steps were taken for publication. With those changes, the final list was established. Scott Gunn of Forward Movement said they would make a good faith effort to find the copyright holders, and that would be sufficient. But he might seek an additional legal opinion about that. Also envisioned was some coaching about the cost of permission to print the songs. Project spirits were buoyed by a description of the Constable Fund, which said, quote, stipulations for use of the fund were also visionary and generous. In November 2014, an application was made to the Constable Fund, and which is administered by the Executive Council of the Episcopal Church. The requested funds were not granted. Throughout the project's duration, the committee had wrestled with many issues, some of which remained unresolved. A musician's edition was needed. The price of the book depended upon both the cost of copyrights and the number of copies printed. The matters related to marketing were noted, but unexplored. It is unfortunate that I cannot take this story to its conclusion, but there is no present conclusion. After all the extensive and intensive work, there was no money to complete the recordings and obtain copyright materials. Matters drifted, and to borrow a concept from T.S. Eliot, the project ended not with a bang, but with a whimper.